make up your mind, 'cause I've been waiting such a long, long time.
Most people want to be Kajillionaires. That's the dream. That's how they get you hooked. Hooked on sugar, hooked on caffeine. Ha ha ha, cry, cry, cry. Me, I prefer to just skim.
So do I.
Du hast gesagt, dass du mich liebst. Für immer.
Hello and thanks for joining us for this week's film show. We're joined by our critic, Lisa Nesselson. Hello, Lisa. Now, we're kicking off with a report about a revealing documentary that hits French cinemas this week, telling the captivating story of Billie Holiday through rare tapes and never-before-heard audio interviews. Can you introduce it for us, Lisa?
Well, if you're lucky, you're already familiar with Billie Holiday's vocal mastery of the blues, and indeed of any note that ever came her way. But this documentary dives into the complexities of her life.
OK, well, let's find out some more from Emerald Maxwell.
Hey there, baby, make up your mind.
It's the story of one of the greatest voices of the 21st century. An hour and a half of previously unseen archive footage about legendary jazz singer Billie Holiday and the America she lived in. Born in 1915 in Philadelphia, she made a name for herself performing in Harlem nightclubs in the 20s. Her rise was meteoric, thanks to an original vocal style that revolutionized jazz.
Now, baby, I'll never, I've been so sad and blue.
The documentary takes us back to the 1930s, when Holiday, nicknamed Lady Day, went on tour around the Deep South. That meant coming face to face with segregation and violent racism. It would eventually lead her to her greatest song, Strange Fruit.
Of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth.
Strange Fruit is the first protest song. It's protesting race politics in front of a mixed audience for the first time.
I'm traveling light.
Faced with racism and a turbulent love life, Billie Holiday turned to drugs. She spent 9 months in prison and became a prime target for police. She'd be hounded by them for the rest of her life.
Je pense qu'aussi on va les faire beaucoup payer de vivre très bien de son art, de s'habiller avec des manteaux de vison, d'avoir des bijoux, bref, des choses qui ne collent pas avec l'image qu'on a de la noire.
I'm traveling
In 1959,
light.
virtually penniless, Billie Holiday succumbed to alcohol and drug-related illness at the age of just 44. Her distinctive voice, though, unmatched in its emotional delivery, still lives on.
Emerald Maxwell reporting there. So, Lisa, what's the verdict on this film?
Well, the director, James Erskine, in these days of identity politics, happens to be a white man from the UK, and this is a portrait of a trailblazing Black American woman. But it's hard to imagine any other individual having done a better job with this material. Now, Linda Lipnack-Kuhl, a white Jewish female reporter, spent over 10 years gathering material to write a biography of Billie Holiday, assembling over 200 hours of tape-recorded conversations in the process. Director Erskine makes excellent use of the vivid authority in those voices, most of them from the grave, except for Tony Bennett, who incredibly sang with Billie. Kuhl died in 1979 under mysterious circumstances that have never been resolved, and the documentary is framed like a detective story. What a gift Billie Holiday had, and what a life. The director has said that Billie Holiday is to the blues as Picasso is to painting, an innovator for the ages and an enduring master of her form.
Indeed. Well, now to a family crime drama called Kajillionaire. It's artist Miranda July's third film. Are there a kajillion reasons to see it, Lisa?
Oh, who's counting? But the answer is yes. I hate to say too much about this movie, right down to who's in it, because everything about it was a surprise to me, and I walked out on a cloud. In the very first scene, we see a downtown branch post office in Los Angeles and three people, a a man, a woman, and a younger woman waiting outside. They're concerned about passersby, whether the coast is clear. They're nervous, so it seems like they might be planning a terrorist act of some sort. Well, it turns out they're a completely humorless family who pull various scams to stay afloat. When we meet them, they're 3 months behind on their rent in an extremely novel location. They are all permanently alert to the possibilities for dishonest gain. The movie has things to say about parenting, romance, capitalism, and the therapeutic value of trying to repair the past. It is bittersweet as can be.
Okay, well, let's take a look. This is from Kajillionaire.
After this person. And clear.
Now. There's a camera there, and there. Cash. Nope, money order.
This is not a cheap tie. Most people want to be Kajillionaires. That's the dream. That's how they get you hooked. Hooked on sugar, hooked on caffeine. Ha ha ha, cry, cry, cry. Me, I prefer to just skim.
So do I.
Well, old Dolio, played by Evan Rachel Wood, does not look happy as part of the family business.
Yes, well, she plays a 26-year-old who, despite living in a major city in this century, is missing many of the normal experiences one has usually had by that age. She's feral, always primed for survival, and not at all sure how to respond when offered a non-sexual massage or when the family meets a vivacious Puerto Rican woman who works in an eyeglass store. Now, this being Los Angeles, there are several minor tremors. The father believes that what Californians call the big one, the apocalyptic major earthquake that will crush whatever it doesn't simply swallow up, is not far off. Miranda July constitutes a creative earthquake. After writing and doing performance art and playing music, she burst on the film scene 15 years ago with Me and You and Everyone We Know. It's been 9 years since her last movie, and I still think about the cat in a cat shelter who narrates her the future. Kajillionaire is funny and haunting and perversely upbeat, despite being about dishonest people with sordid designs on honest citizens.
Well, she's certainly got very good titles for her films. Moving on now to German writer-director Christian Petzold, who was recently the subject of a Paris retrospective. His latest film, Undine, stars Franz Rogowski and Paula, who won the Best Actress trophy at the Berlin Film Festival for this role. Tell us more, Lisa.
Well, Paula will be the last woman to win a Best Actress trophy at the Berlin Festival under that designation, because the event has announced that from now on, the acting award will be non-gendered. Now, Paula is extraordinary from first frame to last as an urban historian in the clutches of an ancient curse. At the very start of this captivating fable, set in modern Berlin, but hearkening back to ancient legends, Undine's boyfriend, Johannes, tells her he's leaving her. And she tells him, well, if you leave me, I'll have to kill you. Now, members of couples have said variations on that for millennia, but Undine means it. She represents the contemporary incarnation of the legend where a creature called an Undine can live outside the water only via the love of a human. Introduce betrayal, take that love away, and the human man is fated to die, and the Undine is doomed to return to the watery deep. But like any self-respecting modern woman, she doesn't want to be beholden to an ancient fate. She meets a professional diver named Christoph and seems to have at least a fighting chance of remaining in our realm.
Okay, well, let's take a look. This is from Undine.
Du hast gesagt, dass du mich liebst. Für immer. Das hat mich glücklich gemacht. So glücklich, wie ich noch nie glücklich war. Du kannst nicht gehen.
Director Christian Petzold is in complete command of his material. His films to date are complex and satisfying and incredibly cinematic. There's always something momentous at stake. His central protagonists tend to be women, and his stories revolve around love. That was the case in his Barbara, Phoenix, and Transit. Petzold says he has always been fascinated by people born 100 years too soon. When I watch his movies, get wrapped up in his movies, I'm grateful that he wasn't born before the invention of motion pictures, because he truly was born to tell stories on film.
Okay, moving on. Out this week is an ambitious animated film that tackles painful historical events with contemporary resonance. Tell us about Josep.
Well, in February of 1939, Barcelona fell, and 500,000 refugees escaping from Spain sought refuge across the border in France. These unfortunate individuals were put in concentration camps without medical care or sufficient food. Artist Josep Bartoli was in 7 camps in 2 years. He needed to draw, and what he drew is also part of the historical record of this shameful and unfamiliar episode. The prominent French political cartoonist who goes by the single name Aurel, whose first film this is, saw a book containing Jocep's sketch of a one-legged man on crutches and became obsessed with Jocep's life and artistic legacy.
The first thing that struck me was the art, the Josep graphic novel, and the unknown story of the concentration camps in southern France in which Spanish refugees were held prisoner. Even most locals in southern France have no clue this happened.
Aurel had been interested in the Spanish Civil War since seeing Ken Loach's film Land and Freedom. It's a beautiful example of cross-pollination between history and art, leading to yet more art. This is a magnificently rendered tale that hops back and forth in time, but is never confusing. Josep eventually made his way to Mexico, where he was more than just friends with Frida Kahlo. The urgent problem of how to treat refugees is still with us, as is the communicative power of Jocep's artwork. This is a devastatingly good movie.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Lisa. That brings us to the end of this week's cinema show. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24. After this, we'll leave you with Josep.
Tiens, saloperie d'espagnol de merde. Tiens.
Et après? Oh, après...